Now, fast forward 6 months from now, we will see, hopefully, all of you again at our next big events, at the next big edition of our International Astronautical Congress, the IAC 2025 in Sydney, Australia. And I hope you will all be there. It is my great pleasure to offer you a panel of our distinguished host colleagues from the host organization and the host country. And it's my pleasure to introduce them. Russell Canning, Trade and Investment Manager, New South Wales Government. We have Jeremy Hallett, Executive Chair from the Space Industry Association of Australia, SIA, which is the host organization, and he's also the IAC 2025 LOC Chair. Then we have Enrico Palermo, who is not only head of the Australian Space Agency, but now also the IAF Vice President for Agency Relations. And last but not least, Lisa Vitar is the IAC Director from the Space Industry Association of Australia.
The celestial emu is a really special feature in our southern skies. This really beautiful constellation emerges from the dark dust lanes that we can see in the Milky Way band that crosses our sky. We call it Garagai in Gilmore language. It takes form in what we call the Coal-Sack Nebula. The emu's body stretches most of the length of the sky towards the northeast direction. The emu in the sky appears around April. We see this big, beautiful dark constellation, Garagai, running. When it runs, its neck sticks out. When the old people would see this, they knew that the emus on the ground, the dinner one, as we call it in Gamilaroi, they were laying the eggs. The female dinner ones were chasing the male dinner ones to do their breeding cycle. The emus begin laying their eggs, and the celestial emu is a reminder that these eggs are ready to collect and they can be eaten at this time. As the year moves on, we see different variations of Garagai. When the eggs push down to the legs at the end of June, this tells us the chicks are forming inside those eggs, so you need to stop hunting those eggs. The celestial emu, which is a male sitting on its nest, incubating the eggs. And this is a really important story for male Gamilaroi people, as we can see the significance of father role in this story. Now, as the year progresses, Garagai changes form, appearing as a featherless emu, crossing country. And that also signals to Gamilaroi people to cross country as well, because the seasons are changing. In November, only the body of Garagai remains, and this signals to us that the dinner ones on the land are at the waterholes. Just a few months later, the annual cycle of the Garagai in the sky repeats.
Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I should say good day, ladies and gentlemen. It's a tremendous honour to be here in Paris, not just representing the Australian government as the head of the Australian Space Agency, but now a member of the IAF Bureau, and it's incredibly grateful for the General Assembly in supporting my nomination last year. What an extremely relevant time to be standing here with this community. I feel, and we heard a little bit in the GLEX panel then, we are on a precipice of a new phase of space exploration, but importantly how we draw those benefits back here on Earth. So over the next 20 minutes or so, Australia hopes to delight you with what we are doing to contribute to that global movement. We all know space is about exploration in many ways, pushing boundaries, going further, seeking the unknown. And if you want to experience that right here on Earth, we submit there's no better place than Australia. So tonight, I'm not just inviting you to a congress, I'm inviting you on an adventure. Picture this, you step off the plane and breathe in the crisp, ocean-kissed air of Sydney. The sun is shining, the coffee is world class, and right away you feel it, that sense of space. Not just the space we know of rockets and satellites, but the vast landscapes, the endless horizon, and the sky that stretches forever. I know for many of you, Australia feels far away. A long flight, a different hemisphere. But that's exactly why it's worth it. When you travel that far, you don't just change time zones, you change perspectives. You see things differently. For many of you, you experience a world where the constellations are upside down, where the seasons flip, and where space isn't just an industry, but part of the very fabric of our land, our culture, and our history. Australia is an old land full of extremes. We have deserts so old and dry, they could, and often do, stand in for Mars. Radio telescopes that listen to whispers from the cosmos, and unique new commercial launch sites that open up brand new access to space. As we just saw in that video, our First Nations people have been gazing at the stars for over 65,000 years, mapping the sky long before Galileo and having a scientific connection to space through that journey. So space is very much in Australia's DNA. But it's not just about history, it's about the future. Right now, Australia is contributing to this next era of space exploration. We're pioneering cutting-edge research in remote operations, robotics, and deep space communications. Our universities, our startups, and industry leaders are forging new pathways in satellite technology, space medicine, and lunar exploration. And as our region, the Indo-Pacific region, takes a bigger role in the global space economy, this year, Australia is the perfect gateway for new collaborations and opportunities. And let's not forget, we know how to throw a party. The food, the wine, the warmest welcome you ever get. IAC 2025 won't just be a congress, it'll be about an experience. One where business deals happen over sunset harbour cruises and new collaborations are sparked over an outback stargazing night. Wildlife, nightlife, hidden restaurants, famous icons, golden sands, turquoise oceans, dewy rainforests. This is Sydney. Imagine networking while sipping a glass of fine Australian Shiraz or Syrah, looking up the Southern Cross and realising that space is not just about technology, it's about people coming together to dream bigger. So why should you make this journey? Well, because great things happen when people come together in extraordinary places. Because space, as we know, is about looking outward, but sometimes the best way to do that is to go somewhere that gives you a fresh perspective. This September, the world space community will gather in Sydney, and trust me, you'll want to be there, because Australia isn't just a destination, we see it as a launch pad for ideas, partnerships, and a future we can build together. So I hope to see you all in Sydney this year.
The space sector is astronauts and rockets, but more importantly, it plays a crucial role in our lives through telecommunications and Earth observation, as well as satellite technology's use in daily applications such as weather forecasting, GPS navigation, and global communications systems. Space exploration not only pushes the boundaries of human ingenuity and exploration, it is now increasingly critical to life on Earth. With its rich history of space exploration and environmental advantage, Australia is the perfect place to explore the next phase of growth in the global space sector. That's why Australia is the perfect host for the 76th International Astronautical Congress, which will take place in Sydney, with the theme of Sustainable Space, Resilient Earth.
Australia is an ancient country, and a new one. Since time immemorial, First Nations Australians have been studying the skies, mapping their meaning and developing deep knowledge about their patterns and impact. Our skies are the biggest, our knowledge the oldest, and our region the boldest. Today, Australia has over 600 organisations operating in the space sector, and our Indo-Pacific region and country partners are home to extraordinary opportunity for space. Ancient and extraordinary landscapes, a unique geographic spatial position, and a wealth of investment in space-based technology has allowed Australia to innovate across industries, from emergency services, health, utilities, and telecommunications, to resources, manufacturing, and agriculture.
Join us from the 29th of September to the 3rd of October in Sydney, Australia. To learn more about these innovations, make meaningful connections, connect with the ancient and the new, and explore partnerships with others in the industry. Collaboration can make the impossible possible. See you at IAC Sydney 2025.
Well, g'day everyone. Jeremy Hallett's my name, and I'm the chairman at the Space Industry Association of Australia, which is the peak body for space in the country. And we're the hosts for IAC this year from the 29th of September to the 3rd of October, which you should all have memorised those dates by now, and which, not to incite panic amongst us, is in 187 days, so not long to go. I'm also the chairman of the local organising committee for IAC this year, and really would like to offer my personal warm welcome to you all to come to Sydney this year, to our IAC being held at Sydney's magnificent International Convention Centre on the water in Darling Harbour in Sydney. Many thanks to you, Clay and Christian and the IAF for your ongoing support as we host this year, and many thanks to our co-hosts, the Australian Space Agency and the New South Wales Government, who you'll hear from shortly. I was thinking about it, and I've been involved in IAC 2025 Sydney since the bid stage, which we started back at the end of 2021. And by the time IAC occurs, it will have been 4 years that I've been working on this project. And you could probably back calculate how old I am, but it'll be about 10% of my life I've spent on this IAC, which is a big commitment, but it's really worth it, I think. Worth it for Australia, definitely. Worth it for the Indo-Pacific region more broadly. And of course, as we all strive to here as being part of the IAF, to continuously highlight the role space plays in every aspect of our lives. And this really goes to the theme of our IAC this year, where we'll be exploring the theme of sustainable space, resilient Earth. And we do that by looking at 3 different elements. The first being the use of space capability for a sustainable and resilient future here on Earth. And I've got a great Australian example of that for you, in that Australia, through a commercial spaceport, recently hosted the first ever re-entry of a commercial spacecraft, which was done for scientific purposes. On 28 February this year, Varda's W2 capsule successfully landed at Southern Launch's Kaniba test range in South Australia after about 6 weeks in orbit, conducting experiments in microgravity. Why does this matter for resilience and sustainability back here on Earth? Well, on board that capsule was a pharmaceuticals experiment aiming to synthesize a particular drug into crystalline form so that could bring that crystal back here on Earth as a seed crystal to grow crystals under normal gravity conditions, to transfer a drug that previously is administered intravenously into pill form, which makes it all the better for therapeutic remedies for patients. Rather than having a cannula in your hand or in your wrist, you just take a tablet. A great improvement for life here on Earth. And as humanity's use of the microgravity environment flourishes, the ability to land these experiments back on Earth is critical, and Australia is well suited for that. The Caniba test range that I mentioned is the size of Switzerland, as we say for a mostly European audience, is uninhabited. Well, that's not quite true. There are 3 residents in that size of Switzerland, and the sky is clear of air traffic, so we can bring spacecraft down regularly. South Australia will be hosting a post-IAC technical tour that I encourage you to look into, that will also allow you to sample some of the wines they have on offer in the Barossa Valley and the McLaren Vale. When we say sustainable space, resilient Earth, we also mean the sustainable use of space. And a great example of this in Australia is our National Space Qualification Network, which has been established to boost space mission assurance and success through rigorous testing and qualification. And for me, the highlight of this network is the Heavy Ion Accelerator located in Canberra, the nation's capital, which has a dedicated beamline for space qualification and rad-hard testing, accelerating ions with 110 million volts. And note, this asset is actually available for use by anyone. It's a user pays facility, and currently it only runs at about 15% duty cycle. So if you're waiting for testing time on beamlines elsewhere in the world, please come to Australia. We can ramp up to meet your demand. Canberra will also host a post-event tour that will allow you to explore the Australian node of the Deep Space Network at Tidbinbilla, as well as being on the doorstep of the Australian wilderness. And finally, when we say sustainable space, resilient Earth, we also mean sustaining life off Earth as we consider humanity amongst the stars. And just a week ago, a large Earth-based radio telescope, the Square Kilometre Array, of which I'm sure you're all familiar, produced its first image as it's ramped up to 1% of its final operating capacity, peering into the origins of the universe. What's 100% capacity for that array? It is 131,072 antennas spread across 512 stations with a collecting area of 419,000 square kilometres, which, to use my Switzerland measure, is 10 times the size of Switzerland, so quite large indeed. The Square Kilometre Array is located in the state of Western Australia, which is also hosting a post-Congress tour, which you might like to look into. The New Norcia facility is also there in Western Australia, and if you go to Rottnest Island, you can see a furry little creature we have called a quokka, which may be of interest to you as well. And finally, in addition to all things space, we know that Sydney and Australia is the #1 destination for you all to visit, if you really think about it. And when we welcome you to our country, we do have amazing opportunities to explore our culture, especially that of our First Nations people that you've already seen this evening. The sights of Sydney, including the Sydney Harbour Bridge and the Sydney Opera House, and our famous natural beauty, including our animals. As we know, you love our koalas and kangaroos. The kanganaut we have around has been very popular this week. So please head to the Congress website at iac2025.org. Early bird registration is open, so please register immediately. You can do it on your phone now if you like, that's fine, I won't be offended. And I look forward to seeing you all in Sydney. Thank you very much.
Bonsoir, mesdames et messieurs. I'm working on my French. I hope that's okay. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for having me here, and thank you so much to Paris and to the IAF for welcoming the New South Wales government. We're very excited to be co-hosts with the Australian Space Agency and with SIA for this year's IAC. I'm over the moon to be here. Okay, all right, I'm going to land, that's all right. My name is Russell Canning, and I represent the New South Wales government here in the UK and Europe, based in Frankfurt in Germany. And I'm part of the New South Wales government's international network. We have 2 core missions, and that is to support New South Wales companies to export to the world and then to support the world to invest in, create jobs and investment in New South Wales. We have offices in Singapore, Greater China, India, the Middle East, the UK and Europe, and the Americas. And so we've been very proud to partner and work very closely with CR and the ASA to really drive interest in IAC Sydney and have global representation at what will be a spectacular event. I have to say I've been so impressed with the quality of the conversations and engagement over the past 2 days here, and also the interest from academia, business and government in attending IAC Sydney. A little bit about our economy, whether by population Australia sits at about 26 million and New South Wales makes up about 8.3 million of that population. But we're responsible for about a third of Australia's GDP, with about an economy of 700 billion. We are proudly diverse and we speak over 250 languages in New South Wales. We also have about 35% of Australia's STEM workforce at over 330,000 participants in STEM. We're home to over 3,000 tech startups. More than 600 multinational companies are regionally headquartered in Sydney. And we're home to over 187,000 space-related companies, which ironically is the number of days until IAC. We also have world-leading academia and research, and 2 of our universities are among a handful of universities with active space programs, but UNSW and the University of Technology of Sydney also rank in the top 20 universities worldwide. This means we translate the research that we do into real-world solutions, and we have companies like Advanced Navigation and New Press Tools who are supporting NASA's Artemis mission to return humans to the moon, Space Machines Company and HEO who are developing in-orbit logistics and satellite inspection capabilities, and Extraterrestrial Power, VXB Aerospace and Deneb Space who are designing next-generation satellite systems. So whether it's safeguarding our communities through telecommunications, improving disaster response and navigation, or tracking agricultural health and climate change, we feel that space is at the heart of our modern society. And collaboration with our international partners is key to achieving the same. If I take you back to an example, 5 or 6 years ago, we had the unprecedented 2019-2020 bushfires in Australia on the East Coast. In New South Wales, the amount of land burnt represented about 7% of the state, or 5.5 million hectares, which is larger than the size of the Netherlands. In that, we had on-the-ground support from our international partners and friends in the US, Canada, with bushfires on the ground, firefighters on the ground, but also specialist advice from our friends here in France. We also had support from space with Japan's Himawari satellite. We're therefore particularly excited about the involvement of space-enabled sectors in this year's IAC. We're bringing the space sector together with end users across our industry in New South Wales and Australia, naming some sectors like emergency management, mining, agriculture, utilities, and healthcare, just to list a few. To summarise, we're incredibly excited to be co-hosts this year, and we can't wait to see you in Sydney this September. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Russell. Hi, everyone. I am Lisa Vitaris, Director of IAC 2025 Sydney. And for those of you who've heard me speak before, I normally talk about IAC 2025 Sydney and what makes it so special. But this afternoon, I'm going to talk about Sydney itself and what it's actually like to live in the heart of one of the most beautiful cities in the world. And I'll also share with you some insider tips on what I like to do in Sydney in my spare time. So aside from living in Italy for 2 years, South Africa for 3 years, and France for 1 year, I'm a Sydney-sider through and through. I went to a school right on the harbour, and at the time I didn't fully appreciate the views that we had of the harbour bridge right through our windows. I'll start by sharing with you this video about Sydney and surrounds. Some of my favourite parts of Sydney were shown in this video. So I walk through the botanical gardens every day on the way to work, and we can sometimes spot water dragons sunning themselves just across the bridge before the fernery. Bondi is definitely worth seeing, but I prefer to take my international guests on the coastal walk from Bondi to Coogee, or on the less visited harbourside walk, coastal walk from Rose Bay to Watsons Bay, finishing up at Watsons Bay Hotel for a well-deserved meal and drinks, and they have great steaks and seafood there. And unlike many, I like heights and have done the Sydney Harbour Bridge climb before. It's an incredible way to see our beautiful harbour city, but I much prefer actually rock climbing in the Blue Mountains. And if you don't climb, if you do, I'll take you. Let me know. We've got the weekend after IAC. They still have some amazing restaurants, spas, and beautiful walks there too. And you can often catch some of our native wildlife like wallabies, brush turkeys, and eagles. Darling Harbour's wildlife, Sydney Zoo, is great to get close up to see our wildlife, but I actually prefer to get out to Featherdale Wildlife Park, where you can hand feed the world's smallest penguins, meet and possibly pat a koala, and hand feed quokkas and get your own quokka selfie without having to go to the other side of Australia, although please do feel free to go to Perth. We do like WA as well. Not to mention you can feed kangaroos, wallabies and putamelons. And for the braver of you, you can actually wrap a snake around you as well, and for a photo opportunity that will no doubt impress all of your friends and family, or maybe not. They might not want to come to Australia then. And it's also worth getting out on our harbour. So the cheapest way you can do this is to actually get out on a ferry. And most people prefer to take the ferry to Manly, as they have great beach and great shops and restaurants too. Otherwise, you could find an event such as Spaceship 2025, which is actually a cruise that we are organising as an adjacent event that goes all the way up the coast to Brisbane, pretty much, to Tangalooma. Or you could hire a boat or find a friend with a boat. I don't have a boat, so unfortunately you'll have to find someone else. For shopping, we've got department stores, David Jones, Maya. They're our equivalent of Galeries Lafayette, but not really. We're not quite like Paris, unfortunately, in terms of shopping, but you might find something a bit different. And I'm probably not the best to give you tips on nightlife because I'd much prefer just going out for a nice dinner. But I do like going out to Opera Bar, which is at our Opera House. So beautiful view, Harbour Bridge right behind you. Watch out for the seagulls. They do try and steal your food. But otherwise, uninterrupted view of the Harbour Bridge. And if you want to get out for a dance as well, Jeremy likes to talk about our nightlife. I'd suggest you come to the gala dinner on Friday night because that's going to be the best opportunity. We've got a spectacular performance ahead for you. But otherwise, the establishment or Palmer & Co., although my friends would probably laugh, I'm sure there are other spots to go out. They're just some really fun ones that I enjoy. But don't just listen to what I have to say. Please hear what our Australian astronaut, Catherine Burnell-Pegg, has to say.
Space has never been more connected to life on Earth. It's an exciting time to be alive. I'm here at Sydney Observatory with one of the world's oldest working telescopes. This place ignites possibilities. Australia's First Nations Indigenous people call it Sky Country. We all call it home. I've got a lot of history here in Sydney. I grew up right here with the sand under my feet and the southern stars above. I remember being asked a lot as a kid what I wanted to be when I grew up. I only ever wanted to be one thing, an astronaut. Today we intersect with so many industries, so many innovations, so many jobs, so many backgrounds and countries, all working together now to create a sustainable future. Did you know they call us the space generation? I don't think that's an age thing. It's all of us who live and work and love exploring our galaxy in connection with life on Earth. And if that's you, I'm here to invite you to my place, right here in Sydney. For 1 week, Sydney becomes the global capital of space, with thousands of delegates from around the world here at the ICC. And one thing I know for sure, the conversations and connections made here will define all our futures.
Thank you. We welcome you to Sydney.
Thank you very much to our distinguished guests from Sydney, our partners with whom we work together so well, and I don't think you need to get any more convincing arguments to go to Sydney. We all wait for you. Thank you very much.